Welcome back to NooBTooB Gaming 101. I'm your host, Dr. Gumar, and this is the second lecture video for the July assignment, which was Enslaved, the Odyssey to the West. The way it works is that every month I assign a game, and at the end of the month I review it. So people post in the thread, they talk about pretty much every aspect of the game they want to, and we get a very good dialogue going. This month in the thread there were 85 replies and almost 2,000 views, so I'm very happy about the turnout we got from the community. So the first thing I want to talk about is the game's graphics and its art design. It's set in yet again, it seems kind of played out, but it's set in a post-apocalyptic world. But they really, I think, did it justice, because it's the world has landmarks that you can easily identify. The first setting you go to is New York City, and I think Dyer Mackin hit it on the nail when he said that everything really looks like what it should if everyone just upped and left New York City. All the buildings are beginning to decay, and there's a lot of growth, a lot of greens highlighting everywhere. It's nice to see all of the greens in combination with the cement of New York City. And I'm from the New York area, so one of the first set pieces, they talk about, well, the main characters, Monkey and Trip, I'll get to them in a bit, but they talk about a clock and it being the meeting place. It could be a meeting place, and it's the clock from Grand Central Station. So I immediately recognized what it was, and I really enjoyed it. The problem with a lot of the art design and the graphics, though, were the uninteresting enemies. They're all robots. Pretty much the story works out is that you control Monkey, who's he's essentially a monkey. He seems to be like more of a Neanderthal-built kind of man, and he was captured by slavers. That the story doesn't really tell you exactly what they were going to do with him, but he escapes with the help, not really help. She kind of escapes, and he tags along of a girl named Trip. And the story revolves around Trip enslaving Monkey to help her go and meet up with her father. She puts a slave crown on Monkey, so if he doesn't do what she says, it's an amazingly painful experience, I guess. So they have to fight through what appears to have caused the apocalypse, which is robots, fucking robots everywhere. They're connected to the slavers in some way. So the enemies are only robots. Just robots, and there aren't that many different types of them. Maybe 4 main enemies, and then your bosses vary slightly, but it was rather boring just looking at the people you're beating over the head with. It's an action-adventure game, so there's combat, there's platforming, and you're just beating the same redundant-looking robots the entire time, and it wasn't very enjoyable. Neomaster said there's a real lack of interesting enemies, and I agree with him. Now the combat works out to be Monkey is equipped with what appears to be some form of power fist and a really interesting staff that can he beats people with. It expands and collapses, so he's not always carrying it around. And he goes and he can shoot things with it. And the way it works is that there's a weaker attack, and hit the X button for weaker attack, and you hit the Y button for a stronger attack on the 360 controller. And you can dodge, roll around, and block. It wasn't as repetitious as Darksiders was, but after a while it was still not a lot of skill involved. There's a lot of people that played it on hard that said it was very challenging. I played my games on normal because I want to enjoy them. So and it was repetitious at a lot of points. You know, X X Y Y Y. It's nice that you have to hit multiple buttons to break it up, but it was still mundane at points. You collect these orange orbs that give you the ability to upgrade. And you can upgrade your health. Monkey's equipped with the shield. Upgrade your staff and your fighting mechanics. And the stuff to upgrade your fighting mechanics I found almost completely useless. There was one where you can counter, and one where you just hit people behind you or something like that. And I didn't find them very useful. The most useful upgrades were the ones for your staff. You could pick up essentially power capsules like bullets, in which you can turn it into a over-the-shoulder third-person shooter and shoot the enemies, the mundane enemies, with your staff. And the power-ups you can get for that were very, very good. One was doubling the power of the staff and then quadrupling the power of the staff. The only problem is that you weren't giving a lot of bullets to use. They're very sparse in the game, so you really had to rely on the basic hand-to-hand combat. Another thing about the mechanics is people had problems with the camera. The way the camera works is that it usually sets up in a point, then you could slightly move it around. And sometimes, if you're not around very many things, you do get a full 360 effect. But Frawny said that he hated the camera and just wanted a 100% free roaming camera. And I don't exactly agree in this case with a 100% free roaming camera, because of the environments, and they really highlight the stuff that you should see and what you want to see. And if you have a 100% free roaming camera, you miss a lot. There's a lot of platforming in the game. It's simple platforming, where you're supposed to jump slightly glows, and it's a very linear path from there. And if it was a 100% free roaming camera, I would have a very hard time finding those paths. With a semi-set camera, it shows me where I need to go, and sometimes that's for the best. People complain about not a lot of exploration, and I like a linear game. I don't really explore much. I think this game did well for not including a lot of exploration, because it guided you down the most interesting path. And I think the only other problem people had with the mechanics was that Dire Mankin had checkpoint problems. And I actually really liked the pacing of this game, because everything's broken down into chapters. I think there were 14 or so chapters, and they were all relatively short. I could bang out a chapter in about a half an hour, which feels good, and I did not have the need to save the game in between a chapter. I knew it was going to be a half an hour, so I'd be able to play to the end of a chapter and just go from there. The main area that was discussed in the thread was about the story, and I'm deciding I'm not going to do any spoilers in these videos, so if you want a more in-depth conversation about the story, go to the thread, because there are some very cool aspects of it in there. But story, sometimes it's a highlight of the game, and at some points it's the low light of the game, because there's essentially only two characters. There's Monkey and a girl named Trip. There's a third character that comes along later named Pigsy, who's a bit of a comedic support, but it's mostly just Trip and Monkey, and the story really revolves around just their character interaction. There's a whole higher level story, but most of it isn't really spoken of. It's kind of rushed along until the very end as to what's happening with the story. Dr. Flibble says what I will say about the story is that it is poorly constructed, and in that aspect I agree it is. The fact that you don't really know your goal until maybe 3/4 of the way through, 80–90% of the way through. Most of the story is just how Monkey and Trip interact with each other. Trip enslaves Monkey early on, and he is quite angry, and I don't blame him. And then he all of a sudden just accepts the fact that he has to do whatever Trip says, and that's one part of the character interaction I didn't really like. There was no real struggle in the fact that he was enslaved by this girl. He's doing everything that she tells him to do, and then he's okay with it. It was very quick and very abrupt to me, and I would have liked that to be, you know, slightly fleshed out a bit more. I mean, Brisby felt that that the two main characters of the story were the game's winning point, and you know, she is correct story-wise because they did fail really in delivering a proper evolution of story. So when playing the game, you really have to focus on just their character interaction as opposed to what's actually going on and what the overall goal is. The third character is a very disgusting, crude person named Pigsy that is there for comedic relief, and Neil Master says that he does a great job playing the third wheel, and to me, I guess he did do a great job playing the third wheel because I fucking hated him. He was terrible. I felt no emotional connection to him at all. He did not do his job, and I guess that's what a third wheel is. A third wheel, nobody likes a third wheel. They're just there, and it's awkward. So I guess he did do his job being a third wheel. But other than that, the story was okay. It was unique, and I wish they really played on the main storyline a bit earlier, and I really wanted more background information on all the characters. Monkey is, I guess he's just, you know, a nomad, a wanderer, and they don't really play up on much of that. You know, Trip talks about her family because half the story you're going to see to meet up with her family. But other than that, there's not much background information. The story was solid. The character interaction was pretty good. I think if the game was a bit longer, they could have flushed it out a bit more. They had to keep it very compact, short, precise, and so there's a lot of abrupt mood swings, a lot of abrupt actions that could have been smoothed over a bit. But I like the character interaction. I just wish they worked on the main story a bit more. Alright, so that's the wrap up for Enslaved. I hope everybody enjoyed it. It's a solid action adventure game. I guess, you know, I keep assigning these fucking things, and they're not exactly my cup of tea. But it was okay. The platforming was straightforward to the point. Nothing extremely challenging, which was good. The combat wasn't overly boring. The boring part was who you're fighting, and the story was, well, the character interaction was above par, but the story, they really should have worked on it a bit more. But overall, Enslaved was a pretty good game. I'm happy. $60, I would not have been happy for it. I think I bought this maybe a month or two after it came out. It was at 40. I say I got my money's worth for 40. For everybody who just bought it now for 15, they probably enjoyed it very much for 15. So in a week or so, I'll be dropping the new assignment. Hopefully it's not a riddle for everybody. What's it going to be? It's one of the suggested games, so it's on that list somewhere. It's going to be a timely release. I've already played it, so I wish I could have put it back to later so I clear my backlog, but it's going to be coming up. So everybody enjoy. Subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to the NooBTooB Army channel, and keep talking about the game. This is really drive by what you guys discuss, and there's a lot of great things in the thread that I don't feel like spoiling here, and the 15-minute time limit kind of hampers me from doing it. So if you've beaten the game before, click on all those spoiler tags, because I know Brisby, she brought up a very good analog between Trip and the overall enemy in the game. So check that out. I really like that. If not, I'll see you in about a week for the new assignment. Thanks for everybody that participated. Yeah.